Hi, I'm Jeff Kozlovich, and together with my business partner Steve Haumschild, we have put together the Kaiwi Channel Association, recording Kaiwi Channel swims and hosting the most insane open water swim anywhere every summer. Swimming the Kaiwi Channel is a complicated thing that could take years of planning and training. I'm going to narrow it down to 10 points in just a few minutes. There's a lot more to the swim, but we're talking basics here, just to give you a brief overview of what it would take to swim the Kaiwi. Okay, I've divided everything you need to know about swimming the Kaiwi Channel into 10 points. Number one, get to Oahu. The Waikiki area is right down here. There's a lot of really good swimming areas, so you can do some last minute training or staying loose. The boat harbor that your boat captain will be leaving from could be right here, or it could be in Hawaii Kai, but all of it's in this general area, and the resort areas are over here and to the north of the island, and they're way too far away. Number two, meet with your support crew. You need to talk to your boat captain, you need to talk to your kayak escort crew, talk over any concerns you have, and bring the list you've been working on for months. Number three, pick the day. That's you, the swimmer. It's your responsibility. You have to pick the day. But I'll give you a few pointers. The weather in Hawaii is complex, very complex. However, there are a few patterns. This is just the very basics. Most of the wind comes out of the northeast. From this direction, they are called trade winds around here. The trade winds blow most of the time, 90% of the time in the summer, and 50% of the time in the winter. Trade winds are named either because in the days when goods went around the world in sailing ships, they were good for trade, or an Old English definition of trade that means steady. Experts are still unsure, but this is the predominant weather pattern, northeast trades, and sometimes they come down to easterly trades. I'll show you a chart of that in a minute, but that's one of the things you want to look for. Yeah, most of the time comes out of the northeast, but if it veers down to the east, that's a better direction. These are usually pretty brisk, strong winds, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 miles an hour. So you want them on the lower side, obviously 10 to 15 miles an hour. You don't want to get too crazy out there. There's another wind pattern, weather pattern that comes up from the big island of Hawaii. It's called Kona weather around here, after the Kona coast of the island of Hawaii. These winds are usually lighter, but they're more variable. They do have a predominant flow out of the southeast, but they shift around a lot. They could start the day southeast, go south, and then end up southwest. So they're lighter, but they're more variable and fickle. It does make for a kind of a confused sea swimming through it, but it is a little on the lighter side. Personally, I look for light to moderate easterly trades as the best situation. The other thing that you have to pay attention to here is swells coming out of the North Pacific hit this coast of Molokai in the wintertime, creating some really, really big surf. And that can be really dangerous and make the swim almost impossible at the start, in which case we move swimmers around to the more protected southern shore. You can get the opposite. In the summer half of the year, you can get really big swells on this part of the island and around the point, which makes starting there really hard, in which case we want people more up here. One of the weather sites that I like is called Wind Guru, and this is the Wind Guru information for the Kaiwi Channel. This is just this week. The winds have gone toward Kona weather, and as you can see, this is the wind direction. The wind is all over the place. It starts off out of the little bit of trades ending here. It starts out of the northeast and then changes, goes a little bit to the north for a while. That's northwest, back to the east, shifting around quite a bit into next week. Here you see the wind all sorts of different directions. It's really light. This one's in knots, so nautical miles an hour. That's pretty light winds here. So actually, yeah, I like all these. A Thursday late night start, end of the day Friday with southeast winds. That's pretty good. Actually, all this week and next week is really good. for a swim start. Okay, this chart's backed up probably from a couple months ago, and it shows the more typical pattern of trade winds out of the northeast. This is again wind direction, so these winds are coming out of the northeast, and they're pretty strong all the time. They veer a little bit. That's better down toward the east. Here, Sunday, a little bit lighter here, and as the week goes on, they get stronger out of the northeast. But that's a more typical pattern. You get that more often than you get the Kona weather. The other thing you want to pay attention to a little bit is the tides. Now, obviously, you're lining up a lot of things, which to get the perfect situation where everything lines up doesn't really happen very often, and I wouldn't worry about it. But when you're looking at the tides, generally you want a day when it's less extreme. So you see some days here where it goes from a really high to a really low, and the week previously it's not very high and not very low. So less water sloshing around there, and the tidal surge flow through the islands does create a lot of current and eddy and a lot of crazy things that I don't think anybody understands yet, but basically the less the better. So the less tidal change, the better off you are. So this week would be better tide-wise than that week. Okay, this is the GPS track from Katie Benoit's swim, and I think it's really interesting to look at. She had a day where the winds were pretty strong out of just a northeasterly trade day, a fairly typical day around here. But this area is fairly protected from this little point. And so the wind's protecting her here. But as soon as she got out from the protection of that point, the wind was so strong it just kept pushing her to the south. And sometimes we'll let that go for a little while, just see what changes might happen as the day goes on. But we realized here there's no way. We've got to fight our way back north. So she had a tough time here fighting against the wind that was coming from this direction. So we finally got here and we figured, well, we made enough. She made enough headway to the north to where we were okay. But as soon as she relaxed at all, it started pushing way to the south again. And toward the end, we actually had to go almost straight north to get into Sandy Beach. Put things on the boat. There's all sorts of stuff that you really need to get on the boat and get on the boat early. The two major ones I'm going to mention are bottled water and glow sticks. You'll need those. You have a list. You know what it takes to do a marathon open water swim, and you just need to make sure that everything gets on the boat. You don't want to really be taking it over on the plane with you. So here's a shot of Katie and her husband putting things on the boat. And this is a shot of the stuff that Penny Palfrey had on the boat. And not only is Penny the fastest swimmer across the Kaiwi Channel, but she's also the best organized. Number 5, where to stay on Molokai. You don't have a lot of choices, but when you get there, when you get to the airport, make sure, like Darren Miller did here, you get your picture taken in front of the famous Molokai Island sign at the airport. Okay, here's the island of Molokai, and right here, most likely is where we want you to start your swim. And fortunately, the Kozlovich Resort is right here. Kozlovich Resort is where you want to stay on Molokai. Okay, here's what it looks like from the Molokai Resort. It's actually a very beautiful place. There was a hotel there for many years. The hotel ended up closing down, but there are a lot of condos around there that you can rent, and the grounds are beautiful, and the beach is beautiful, and the sunset is absolutely stunning. Alright, so I've been assuming that you're going to fly to Molokai, and I really hope you do, because the alternative, going over onto the boat into the wind, means you'd be dealing with this for 3 hours. Ask Katie Benoit how fun that was. She threw up all over me, all over the boat, and after she got that under control, she just threw up over the rail for the rest of the trip. Number 6, getting to the boat. Might seem like a fairly straightforward thing, but it's not exactly a straightforward thing on Molokai. So you will be staying at the Kozlovich Resort, which is up here at the top of the picture. And it's a simple thing if you're staying there, a little more simple. But let's say, first of all, that there's a large northwest swell and there's huge surf on this side of the island and you can't start from there. And you need to start just around the corner on this side where hopefully there isn't any surf. Well, if that's the case, you got to take a cab. And yeah, we've worked with these cab drivers and they're quite willing to do it even at a midnight or 11 p.m. or 2 a.m. start, whatever. They'll come and get you and drive the car. I don't know, can't see the road exactly, but eventually you get to a long dirt road. Yeah, the cab will go down this long, pretty rutted, not very well maintained dirt road to a very remote harbor on the southern shore of Molokai called Haleolono. Haleolono used to be an industrial harbor. Mainly they were trying to get sand from Molokai to Oahu, and that project was abandoned more than 50 years ago. So now it's used by an occasional fisherman, and it's the start of the Molokai or Kaiwi Channel canoe race, and some swimmers find their way there on the start of their own adventure. It's quite easy. The boat can pull right up to the dock. You can put all of your things on the boat, and you can get on the boat and power out to the start of the swim about 20 minutes away. Yeah, that was the sunset from Haleolono one day. And no, I didn't use Photoshop to touch that picture up at all. Things are a little bit different if you're going to start your swim from right in front of the Molokai Resort. It's a great start. It's a lot easier, sandy, not rocky like the Lau Point start. But there is one challenge. The boat will be anchored offshore, and when you get up at midnight and take all of your things down to the beach, how are you going to get it to the boat? Somebody, like your kayaker, probably, will swim out to the boat, bring the kayak back, and start ferrying gear back to the boat. But just remember that most likely this is going to get wet, so dry bags are really important, or thick plastic trash bags. And then after the kayak ferries everything out to the boat, the rest of the crew gets to swim out to the boat. So remember that. Number 7, the swim start. Okay, there are two basic starting places for the Molokai or Kaiwi Channel swim. One is right in front of the Molokai Resort, and the other one is down around Lau Point. If the surf is too large on the western side, you can get just around the point, and this coast should block the surf, so it should be okay to start from here. But either starting location, this is pretty much what it's going to look like at the start. And that one little dot there is pretty important. That's the Makapu'u Lighthouse. It's a lighthouse that's a couple miles north of Sandy Beach where you're aiming for. So it's a pretty good light to steer by. Some swimmers have rituals before the swim, and this is Darren Miller doing God knows what. This is what Lau Point looks like. It's very rocky, but on calmer days there are places to get in. And this is a close-up of the very point, and if you're careful and know what you're doing, you can get right through there onto this beach and start your swim from right here, but it's quite a challenge in the dark. On the beach in front of the resort and the other long sandy beach just to the south of it, a little more straightforward. You just stroll out onto the sand and start your swim. It's Bill Godding on the right and Forrest Nelson and me with the paddleboard before I figured out that a kayak was way more efficient. It's a view of the Molokai Resort right here from the airplane ride on the way over, and the swim start could be right here or it could be off this beach over here, but nice sandy beaches. And somebody on the boat, not the swimmer or the kayaker, should be in charge of the time. There we go. It's Bill and Forrest swimming out, and me there on the left lit up like a Christmas tree. Number 8, the swim. You've been planning and training and saving for months or years, and now it's time to do what you came to do. Swim. Again, this is what it's going to look like at the start. We like to start people in the dark. It's easier to start in the dark than it is to finish in the dark. Glow sticks. If you're going to do feedings at night, they are really helpful on the bottle that gets tossed to the swimmer. Toss a bottle without one in a pitch black ocean, and you get a frustrated swimmer. Finally, the darkness fades and the sun does come up. That's me on the kayak, Kathleen Wilson swimming. The swimmer is actually swimming away from the sunrise. And this picture also shows the relative position of the boat most of the time to the kayaker and the swimmer. It's way too rough most of the time for the boat to stay close, so the boat stays further away. Garen Miller swimming through a lot of chop. It's a pretty rough ocean out there sometimes. There's another photo of Darren. Penny Palfrey taking a break, and that's usually the preferred method of feeding in this channel, a bottle with whatever the swimmer needs to drink attached to a string, rubber band with a power bar, whatever the swimmer wants to eat attached to it. It's a great picture that shows just how much the water in this channel is moving up and down. That's Steve on the kayak. And yeah, we've had a few swimmers actually get seasick, motion sick from all the up and down movement. Steve again on the kayak. Sometimes you can't see the swimmer, sometimes you can't see the kayaker, and it's really scary when the kayaker can't see the boat. And sometimes it feels like you're swimming uphill. Well, that's because you are. Kathleen Wilson taking a break. In this picture you can see how clear the water is, and it usually is most of the way crystal clear. Maybe a little murkiness at the very start and the finish. And there's Oahu under the clouds. It's another beautiful sunrise photo. That's me on the kayak and Kathleen Wilson swimming away from Molokai. It's another picture that shows just pretty average conditions in the channel. And that's Steve keeping a close eye on Penny Palfrey. And finally, Oahu seems to be getting closer. And one of the things that you look for is this particular mountain. That's actually a volcanic crater. Coco Crater, and Sandy Beach is right on the bottom right-hand corner of that crater. Here's a good shot of the kayak right next to the swimmer, guiding her in. Number 9, the swim finish. Yeah, you're getting there. You can do this. Be a little bit careful when you come onto shore, because the beach there at Sandy Beach does have a very dangerous shore break. Kathleen Wilson found out the hard way, in the dark. Okay, let me show you what the approach to the finish is like. Some of the possible landing places and what you have to watch out for. So we are always aiming for Sandy Beach right here. Most swimmers, if they manage a straighter line, are coming from this direction. Sometimes you get pushed down to the south from stronger winds, and you have to kind of make a curve towards Sandy Beach at the end. Another possible landing place is inside of Hanauma Bay. Don't go all the way in, but right on the right edge here, there's a small little bay right where that cursor is, and you can get in there. We've had a few people go all the way around to the other side of the point too. you can actually, if the current is taking you to the north, this, depending on what the surf is like and the conditions are like, and whether it's light or dark, none of this I would try in the dark. A couple places maybe in the light, but depending, you could always go around extra mile or so, but you could make it to the sandy beach at Makapu'u. When the tide rises on this part of the coast, the tide actually fills in north to south, so that bulge of a tide is coming down the coast as it's rising, down the coast, and it turns the corner and keeps going. And when the tide is dropping, there's a current that's coming the opposite way. It's coming south to north. You usually only feel this in the last mile or so, with one possible exception. As the wave or the tide drops right around here, actually you can see this line pretty well on the Google Earth ocean here. There's a deep trench, actually a big drop off here, and sometimes the current from the dropping tide kind of hugs that for a while, so you get a current on a dropping tide going out pretty far, and if you're coming in at the same time that current's going out, that could cause you some problems at the end. Actually, that is one of the reasons why you want to stay a little bit to the north and avoid this area right here coming in. So Sandy Beach, basically the place where you want to come in. Here's a view of Sandy Beach from the shore. You can see some pretty good sized surf there, and the water's really shallow. You can also see the rocky coast in back. Not a place you'd want to try to get ashore. The other good reason for coming ashore at Sandy Beach is it's a beautiful beach park with lots of parking, and your friends and family can bring you a lei, or several of them. Bill Godding, the end of his swim. Darren Miller giving me a hug at the end of his swim. Katie Benoit coming in through the surf. Number 10, make it official. We've gone through all the hard work of swimming across the channel, and there's one final thing you have to do. You and your observer on the boat have to fill out the World Open Water Swimming Association Observer's Report. And then you're done.